Today, we're going way, way back to the cradle of civilization, to Mesopotamia, to talk about the world's very first empires. We're going to look at these incredible, ambitious rulers who, for the first time ever, took a bunch of warring cities and forged them into massive kingdoms. You've heard this a million times, right? It sounds so brutal, so simple, just a straightforward call for revenge. It's probably one of the most famous phrases to ever come out of the ancient world. But what if I told you that its real purpose was the exact opposite? Yeah, what if this famous law wasn't designed to encourage revenge, but actually to control it? Stick with me here, because we're about to flip the script on that idea and explore the incredible empire that came up with it. Okay, so our story kicks off way back in the 24th century BCE. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Mesopotamia, was home to the Sumerians. They'd built this amazing civilization, but it was basically just a collection of city-states that were always fighting with each other. But up in the north, a new power was starting to rise, the Akkadians, and they were about to change everything. And out of this chaos comes a man named Sargon, who we now call Sargon the Great. And he did something nobody had ever done before. He went on the warpath, conquered the Sumerians, and united all of Mesopotamia. He created the very first true empire the world had ever seen. And check out the title Sargon gave himself, King of the Four Quarters. Talk about confidence. This was basically his way of saying, I'm the king of the entire known world. It was this huge, bold declaration that he'd brought the north and the south, Akkad and Sumer, under his single rule. Under Sargon's successor, a guy named Naram-Sin, the empire just exploded. Just imagine a single kingdom stretching all the way from the Persian Gulf clean across to the Mediterranean Sea. Their language, Akkadian, became the language of business and politics for the whole area. But, even the greatest empires can be fragile. After about 100 years, facing revolts from within and invaders from without, the whole thing just collapsed. So after the Akkadian Empire fell, the Sumerians actually made a comeback. They managed to unify Mesopotamia again in what's called the Third Dynasty of Ur. But their moment in the sun was pretty short-lived because a new group, the Amorites, swept in from the west, and they were about to establish a brand new center of power. Now, the Amorites didn't just conquer, they were builders. They started a new dynasty and founded a capital city that would become absolutely legendary, Babylon. From this moment on, that whole southern part of Mesopotamia, the old lands of Sumer and Akkad, it all started to be known as Babylonia. And this brings us to Babylon's sixth and by far most famous king, Hammurabi. This guy was a political genius. First, he made sure his power at home was secure. Then, one by one, he started picking off his neighbors until he had united all of Mesopotamia again. But he wasn't just a conqueror, he was a builder. He set up a strong central government and poured money into infrastructure, building canals and roads to make trade and agriculture boom. But you know what? For all his military victories and economic projects, that's not what Hammurabi is remembered for. His most incredible, long-lasting legacy was something totally revolutionary, a complete system of laws made to govern his entire empire. 282, that's how many laws he had carved into a massive stone pillar, a stele, and then put it right in a public square for everyone to see. Now, think about that. This was a total game changer. Suddenly, the law wasn't some secret known only to priests or just whatever the king felt like that day. No, it was written down. It was public. It was predictable. This meant society was going to be ruled by a set of rules, not just by one man's power. Okay, so let's circle back to an eye for an eye. Here's why it was so important. Before Hammurabi's code, if someone from another family hurt you, your family could seek unlimited revenge. It could lead to these endless blood feuds that would just tear society apart for generations. An eye for an eye, or what scholars call retaliation in kind, was designed to stop that cycle. It meant the punishment had to fit the crime, and nothing more. It put a legal cap on revenge. Now, there are two really key things to understand about the code. First, as we said, it put a limit on retaliation. But, and this is a big but, it was not a system of equal justice for all, not even close. The punishment you received depended heavily on your social status and the status of the person you wronged. Harming a nobleman carried a much, much heavier penalty than harming a common person, or, say, a slave. So why did he do it? Well, Hammurabi tells us himself. In the closing words of the code, he wrote that he created these laws so that the strong might not oppress the weak. He really presented his code as this great act of justice, a tool to protect the most vulnerable people in his kingdom using the power of written law. But, as we've already seen, history in Mesopotamia seems to move in cycles, and even an empire as powerful and well-organized as Hammurabi's couldn't last forever. I mean, when you look at it on a timeline like this, the pattern just jumps right out at you. Sargon's Akkadians rise, and then they fall. The Sumerians have a brief comeback, but then they're swept away. Then the Amorites build the amazing kingdom of Babylon under Hammurabi. But by the 16th century BCE, a new group, the Hittites, invade from the north and bring the whole thing crashing down. And really, that's the main takeaway here. The empires of Sargon and Hammurabi, they all eventually crumbled. That's what empires do. But Hammurabi's truly revolutionary idea that an entire society could be held together not just by a mighty king, but by a shared written code of law, well, that was a legacy that would outlive his kingdom by thousands of years, and it would help shape the very foundations of civilization itself.